All it took was $50 and a spilled glass of wine to ruin a millionaire's blind date. What no one expected was that he'd fall for the waitress who did it. When a fiercely loyal secretary bribes a clumsy but sharp-tongued server to sabotage her boss's evening, the plan backfires in the most unexpected way. What starts as a petty act of jealousy quickly spirals into a whirlwind of attraction, secrets, and unexpected love between a self-made CEO and a woman who was never supposed to matter. Vivian Wilson sat stiffly behind her sleek glass desk, fingers poised over the keyboard, but her eyes weren't on the screen. They were on Jason Cole, just a few steps away in his office, leaning back in his chair as he spoke into the phone. His voice, low and casual, carried through the open door. Yeah, I know, a blind date. But you've been pestering me about getting out there, so fine. I'll go. Tonight? Okay, 7 p.m. What's her name again? Vanessa? Vivian's chest tightened. She quickly looked away, pretending to type. Her face was calm, professional. But inside, her thoughts raced like a stampede. Vanessa. A blind date. Tonight. Why now? Jason had never seemed interested in dating before. At least not seriously. He was married to his work, or so she told herself. For years, she had been by his side, scheduling his meetings, coordinating his travel, helping him through tough boardroom battles, even remembering how he liked his espresso, dark roast, 2 sugars, a splash of oat milk. No one knew him better. No one worked harder for him. And yet, some random woman named Vanessa was going to sit across from him tonight and possibly charm her way into his life? Not if she could help it. The idea was reckless, even absurd. Vivian had never done anything like this before. She was always measured, controlled, strategic. But today, something in her snapped. By 5:30 p.m., Jason was gone, sharp suit, smooth cologne, that maddeningly handsome smile. He'd looked at her on his way out and said, "Wish me luck." She had smiled and said, "Break a leg." The moment the elevator doors closed behind him, she grabbed her coat and purse. At the rooftop restaurant, warm lights twinkled under a canopy of ivy. A live acoustic band played softly in the background. Waiters moved gracefully between tables, serving fine wine and delicate entrees to polished guests. Vivian slipped inside, her coat tight around her. Her heart was racing, though she couldn't say whether it was panic, jealousy, or adrenaline. She scanned the room, eyes sharp, until she found Jason seated at a candlelit table, checking his watch. The seat across from him was still empty. Perfect. Then she turned her gaze toward the staff. Her eyes landed on a young waitress, probably mid-20s, petite but curvy, dressed in a black uniform and has a glint of sarcasm in her eyes. The waitress was adjusting silverware at a nearby table, humming under her breath. Vivian approached. "Excuse me," she said softly. The waitress turned. "You need something?" Vivian gave a quick glance around. No one was paying attention. She pulled a crisp $50 bill from her clutch and held it discreetly between 2 fingers. The waitress blinked. Is that a bribe?" "In a sense," Vivian replied coolly. "I need you to ruin a date." The waitress tilted her head. "You serious?" Vivian nodded toward Jason. "That man. Table by the window. His date will arrive soon. I need the evening to fall apart. Nothing dramatic. No lawsuits. Just enough to ruin the mood." The waitress looked over at Jason, then back at Vivian. "Let me guess. Jealous ex? Crazy cousin? Secret wife?" Vivian didn't answer. The waitress smirked. "Okay, now I am intrigued." She took the money and folded it into her apron pocket. "What kind of ruin are we talking? Wine spill? Hair in the food? Loud sneeze during the appetizer? Use your judgment. You're smart. You'll know what to do." The waitress gave a mock salute. "Name's Lena, by the way. If this gets me fired, I'll haunt you." Vivian's lips barely curled. "Noted." As Lena walked away toward the kitchen, Vivian lingered by the bar, just close enough to watch. The restaurant was dim, the wine flowed freely, and the band had just switched to a jazzy version of Can't Help Falling in Love. Somewhere deep inside her, Vivian felt a pang of guilt. But guilt was nothing compared to the ache of watching Jason fall for someone else. She turned and left the restaurant, heels clicking briskly, unaware that this one act, a desperate tip to a bored waitress, would change everything. Lena leaned against the stainless steel counter in the kitchen, turning the $50 bill over in her hands. "You've got that look again," her coworker Jamal said, sliding a plate of truffle risotto onto a tray. "What look?" she asked absently. "The I'm about to do something stupid for cash look." Lena smirked. "You know me too well." She folded the bill, tucked it into the tiny zip pocket inside her apron, and exhaled slowly. It wasn't the first time she'd been offered a bribe tonight, though usually it was from customers begging for a table upgrade, not mysterious women asking her to sabotage an evening. And yet, there was something almost exciting about it. Not just the money, the mischief, the randomness. She grabbed 2 glasses of red wine, expensive ones, and placed them carefully on a tray, balancing it with the ease of someone who dodged drunks, toddlers, and 2 proposals in her waitressing career. "Wish me luck," she said under her breath. Then she stepped out into the restaurant. At the table by the window, Jason Cole was already seated, elbows on the table, looking through the menu with mild disinterest. He wore a tailored charcoal blazer over a white open-collar shirt, no tie. His watch gleamed in the soft candlelight. He looked good, like someone who had absolutely nothing to prove and knew it. Lena approached, her game face on. "Good evening, sir," she said brightly. "Complimentary red wine on the house." Jason looked up, and their eyes met for a moment longer than necessary. "Thanks," he said with a slight smile. Just as she moved to place the glasses down, Lena let her foot catch on the edge of the carpet and, in a flawless display of faux clumsiness, stumbled forward. The tray tilted. Both glasses tipped. Wine cascaded onto the tablecloth, and directly into the lap of the woman who had just arrived at the table seconds before. "Oh, my God!" the woman shrieked, jumping to her feet. Her ivory silk dress was now splattered in deep burgundy. She looked down in horror, as though she'd just been assaulted with a bottle of ink. "I'm so sorry," Lena gasped, hand over her mouth. "I didn't see, oh my God." The woman glared at her like she'd committed a federal offense. "Do you have any idea how much this dress cost?" "It's Dior." "I'll, get you some towels," Lena offered weakly. "No, you'll get me the manager," she snapped, dabbing at her dress with the edge of the tablecloth. "This is unacceptable." Jason stood slowly, his expression unreadable. "Vanessa, are you okay?" Vanessa rounded on him. "Okay. Do I look okay? I'm soaked. This restaurant is a joke." Lena stood awkwardly to the side, doing her best to look mortified without actually laughing. She caught Jason's eye again, and to her surprise, he smirked. He gave her a tiny shake of the head, like he already knew what this was. Like he wasn't angry at all. Lena blinked. That was unexpected. Vanessa grabbed her designer clutch and stomped off toward the restroom, muttering a storm of colorful words under her breath. Lena turned to Jason, ready for the worst. "I'll comp your meal," she said quickly. "And your dry cleaning. If you..." "Don't worry about it," Jason interrupted, waving her off. Lena froze. "Seriously?" He glanced toward the restroom. Honestly, that may have been divine intervention. She narrowed her eyes. "You didn't like her?" "She's intense," Jason said diplomatically. Then his lips curved into a more honest smile. "You, on the other hand, have impeccable timing." Lena gave a mock bow. "Happy to be of service." "Wait, come sit." She blinked. "What? You're clearly off the clock now," he said, glancing toward the kitchen. "Or you will be soon. Join me. Just for a few minutes. Humor me." Lena hesitated. This wasn't part of the plan, but her curiosity outweighed her hesitation. "Just for a few minutes," she said, pulling out the chair across from him. They sat, the candle flickering gently between them. The ruined tablecloth had already been whisked away by another server. "So, what's your name?" Jason asked. "Lena. Lena the saboteur." She raised an eyebrow. "You think I did that on purpose?" He leaned back. "You're a terrible actress." Lena grinned. "Fair enough." They fell into conversation, surprisingly easy, flowing real. They talked about everything and nothing. Favorite movies, worst dates, embarrassing childhood nicknames. His was E.T., hers was Beans. At one point, Jason asked, "So, did someone really pay you to ruin the date?" Lena paused, then said with mock seriousness, "That information is classified." Jason laughed, genuinely. By the time Vanessa returned from the restroom, still furious and still damp, Jason was already standing. "Let's call it a night," he told her. She glared at both of them, but didn't argue. Just stormed out. Lena remained seated, unsure of what to do. Then Jason turned back to her and slid a folded note across the table, underneath a large cash tip. "For when you're not working," he said. And with that, he was gone. Lena unfolded the note once he was out of sight. In neat handwriting, it read, "Dinner sometime? I promise not to spill anything. Jason." She stared at it, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. "Well, damn," she whispered to herself. That backfired beautifully. Lena stood in the break room of the restaurant, the soft hum of the espresso machine behind her, the lights a little too bright for her tired eyes. She held the folded note between her fingers, reading Jason's message for the third time. "Dinner sometime? I promise not to spill anything. Jason." No guy had ever made her laugh on a first interaction quite like he did, and certainly not while she was pretending to trip over her own foot. Jamal peeked over her shoulder as he passed behind her. "Ooh, is that a number? Please tell me that's from Suit Guy." Lena rolled her eyes but smiled. "It's not a number. It's a dinner offer. Same thing. A hot guy in a designer suit just asked you out, and you spilled wine on his date. That's some twisted Cinderella nonsense right there." Lena laughed. "It wasn't supposed to end like this." "You sure about that?" Jamal asked, raising an eyebrow. She didn't answer. She just folded the note again, carefully this time, and slid it into her pocket. Her shift was over anyway. She clocked out, grabbed her bag, and walked into the summer night, still thinking about that smile. 2 days later, she texted him. "Lena, you sure you want to risk another dinner with me? I've got a 3-spill streak going." "Jason, I'll wear a raincoat." "Lena, that's either charming or deeply weird." "Jason, I get that a lot." They met at a hole-in-the-wall taco place downtown. Lena had picked it, partly to see if Mr. Cole Enterprises could handle grease-stained tables and salsa in plastic squeeze bottles. He showed up in dark jeans, a white t-shirt under a lightweight jacket, and a smile that made him look 5 years younger than his Forbes profile photo. "You found it," she said as he walked up. "I'm adventurous," Jason replied. "Also, my GPS is amazing." They grabbed a corner booth, ordered a round of tacos, carne asada for him, fish tacos for her, and horchata to drink. No servers here. No candles. Just 2 people in a booth with peeling vinyl seats and mismatched napkins. Lena was relaxed in a way she hadn't felt in weeks. Maybe months. Jason wasn't what she expected. CEOs were supposed to be slick, overly polite, maybe a little cold. But he was real. "So," he asked, halfway through his taco, "do you sabotage a lot of dates, or was mine special?" Lena grinned. "Only the ones where the guy looks like he needs rescuing." He nodded solemnly. Vanessa was intense. "She called her dog her business partner," Lena said, wiping her mouth, "and ordered the waiter to lower the music because it was disrupting her aura." "I did you a favor." "You did," he said. "But that still doesn't explain why." Lena hesitated. She hadn't decided yet whether to tell the truth. That a jealous secretary had slipped her $50 to derail the date. Instead, she shrugged. "I guess I just went with my gut." Jason tilted his head, as if he didn't fully believe her, but wasn't going to push it. "You're a mystery," he said. "You're a billionaire eating tacos out of a cardboard tray," she shot back. "I think we're even." They kept talking. Hours passed like minutes. They swapped stories. Lena told him about growing up in a cramped apartment with her 3 older brothers and 1 bathroom. Jason talked about boarding schools, lonely summers, and how business success came with fewer genuine connections than people assumed. He asked about her art. She had a sketchbook in her bag she rarely showed anyone. She asked about his company, Not the press release version, but how he actually felt running it. And he didn't hold back. I used to think success was about control, he said, staring at his drink. Now I'm starting to think it's about letting go. That's surprisingly wise, Lena said. I read a fortune cookie yesterday. It stuck. She snorted. When they finally stood up to leave, Jason walked her to the train station. The city was warm and buzzing, the sidewalk glowing under street lamps. He didn't try to kiss her. Just stood there, hands in his pockets. I had fun, he said. Me too. I'd like to see you again. Lena nodded. I'd like that. As she stepped into the train, the doors closing behind her, she realized she was smiling like an idiot. The kind of smile you only get when you didn't expect to be seen. And someone really did. The elevator chimed softly as it reached the top floor of Cole Enterprises. Vivian Wilson stepped out, her heels clicking rhythmically across the polished marble floor. She was early. As always. She passed the massive windows that framed the skyline like art and entered the executive wing, her hands clutching her tablet just a little too tightly. Her inbox had been quiet all weekend. No meeting reschedules. No late-night brainstorming texts. No urgent contract updates from Jason. She hadn't heard from him since Thursday. That would have been fine, professional even, if it weren't for the growing pit in her stomach and the knowledge that she knew where he had been on Friday night. Downtown. At a taco shack. With her. Vivian had driven past the place, not even sure why. The building was a dive, the paint peeling, the lighting dim, the kind of place she wouldn't even glance at twice. She saw them. Jason and the waitress, Lena, seated together in a corner booth, laughing like old friends, shoulders leaning just a little too close. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but she didn't need to. She knew that look. And it wasn't casual. It was connection. Vivian stood by her desk now, pretending to read through Jason's itinerary, though her eyes weren't scanning the screen. They were fixed on the memory of Lena's cocky little smirk and those cheap black shoes that didn't even match her uniform. She couldn't believe this was happening. She had known Jason longer than anyone in the company. She had stayed late, come in early, canceled vacations. Hell, she'd even memorized the names of his favorite cufflink designers. And now he was off, dating some clumsy waitress who had only been in his life for 5 minutes? It felt like a bad dream, one she wasn't going to sit around and let continue. At lunchtime, Vivian stepped outside the office building, walking briskly down the street like she was running an errand. But she wasn't. She had called in a favor, an old college roommate who worked in HR at the rooftop restaurant where the infamous date had gone down. Yeah, I can tell you her name, her friend had said over the phone. Lena Hart. Kind of wild. Pretty funny, though. She's not in today, but she picks up shifts at this little cafe down on 4th. Some kind of side hustle. That was all Vivian needed. 15 minutes later, she stood outside a tiny cafe called Ground Up, staring through the window. And there she was, Lena, wearing a faded denim jacket over a black t-shirt that said "Don't talk to me until my second cup." She was behind the counter, laughing with a customer, pouring oat milk into a latte with way too much foam. Vivian stepped inside, the bell over the door jingling softly. Lena looked up, her eyes narrowing with recognition. Well, if it isn't Lady Sabotage. Vivian didn't smile. Can we talk? I'm on shift. Then I'll order something. She approached the counter and scanned the menu without really looking. Flat white. Extra hot. No foam. Lena raised an eyebrow. Bossy. I'm not here to make friends. No kidding. Lena moved efficiently behind the machine, hands quick and sure. She slid the drink across the counter. So, what's this about? Vivian leaned in. I'll keep this simple. Whatever's happening with Jason, it ends. Lena blinked. Excuse me? You heard me. Vivian's voice was soft, almost calm, but there was steel under it. You're not his type. This is a fling. Maybe a distraction. But it won't last. And it's not going anywhere. Lena crossed her arms. You really think it's your business who he sees? Vivian slid another crisp $500 bill onto the counter between them. Lena looked down at it, then back at Vivian. I paid you once, Vivian said. You already proved you can walk away. Consider this a bonus round. The cafe had gone oddly quiet. The one customer in the corner looked up, curious. Lena didn't touch the bill. Instead, she stepped closer. You know what's funny? She said, voice low. When I took your money the first time, I thought you were pathetic. Now I think you're dangerous. Vivian's jaw tensed. I didn't mean to like him, Lena said. I was supposed to just trip and spill and walk away. But he sat me down and listened. And not just with his ears. With his whole face. His whole damn heart. When was the last time he did that with you? Vivian's face flushed a deep red. You don't know what you're doing, she snapped. No, Lena said, grabbing the $50 and shoving it back into Vivian's hand. But I know what I won't do. I won't take your money to disappear. Not now. Not when this actually feels real. Vivian didn't reply. She just turned sharply on her heel, heels clicking angrily on the tile, and stormed out of the cafe, the bell jingling in her wake. Lena stood behind the counter for a long moment, her hands shaking slightly. Then she reached under the counter, pulled out a cookie, and took a giant bite. Worth it, she muttered, crumbs falling onto the register. It was almost midnight when Jason pulled his sleek black SUV into the nearly empty parking lot behind the Tipping Point Cafe. Lena had texted him a few hours earlier. Lena, you up for a late-night coffee and a weird conversation? Jason, sounds dangerously appealing. Do I need to bring legal counsel? Lena, just bring your listening ears. And maybe some patience. Now he sat in the dim glow of the cafe's neon, open late sign, wondering what kind of conversation required caffeine and a warning. Inside, the cafe was closed to customers. Chairs were turned upside down on tables, the espresso machine was silent, and the smell of vanilla beans and cleaning solution hung in the air. Lena sat on the counter, legs swinging slowly, nursing a chipped mug. Jason pushed the door open, letting in the warm summer breeze behind him. You sure you're open? He teased. I made you something, Lena said, hopping off the counter and disappearing behind it. He smiled, following the sound of her voice. I never say no to your coffee, even though you once put cayenne pepper in my mocha. You said you like surprises. I meant good ones. She reappeared, handing him a cup. This one's safe. Probably. He took a sip. It was perfect. Okay, he said, leaning against the counter beside her. So, weird conversation? Lena's playful expression dimmed slightly. She looked down at her cup, then at him. You ever keep something to yourself so long it starts to feel like it might explode out of your chest? He nodded, instantly serious. Yeah. She took a deep breath. There's something I need to tell you. And it's not cute or funny or sexy. It's kind of crappy, actually. Jason tensed, but didn't interrupt. I didn't spill that wine by accident, she said softly. There was a long pause. Jason blinked. Go on. I did trip. But I planned to. I was paid to ruin the date. The words hung in the air, thick and strange. Jason stared at her. She came up to me before the dinner started. Your secretary, Vivian. She offered me $50 to mess it up. He let out a breath and turned his face away slowly. I needed the money, she continued quickly. And I thought, hey, one little spill, awkward moment, no big deal. You'd move on, date someone else, and I'd be back to serving coffee to hungover artists. She smiled weakly, but Jason didn't return it. Instead, he set the cup down carefully. Why are you telling me this now? Lena shrugged. Because I like you. More than I should. And you deserve to know. He was quiet again, eyes fixed on the tiled floor. She reached out and touched his arm. Hey, I didn't expect you to talk to me after that night. I didn't expect you to see me. But you did. And the worst part, I almost didn't let myself believe it. Jason looked at her then. Really looked at her. You know what's crazy? He said finally. What? I had a feeling. You did. I saw Vivian's face the next morning. She was smug. Weirdly satisfied. She's been by my side for years, but I've never seen her that relaxed unless she's made something happen. She tried again, by the way, Lena added. Jason narrowed his eyes. What? Came into the cafe, offered me $500. Told me I wasn't good enough. That you'd move on. His face darkened. I gave it back, Lena said quickly. I told her I wasn't going anywhere. Not unless you wanted me to. Jason exhaled slowly. She crossed the line. I can't ignore it anymore. They were silent for a moment. Then he asked, Did you regret it? The spill, she said, then smiled faintly. Only the part where I had to dry clean my sneakers. No, he said. I mean taking the money. Doing what she asked. Lena didn't flinch. I regret the lie. Not the outcome. Jason considered that. Then he reached for her hand. You know what I regret? He said, voice low. She shook her head. That it took sabotage and spilled wine for me to notice the only person in the room who didn't want something from me. She didn't say anything. He stepped closer. And I don't care how we got here, Lena. I just care that you're still here. That was when the last wall she'd built up crumbled. She stepped into him, resting her forehead against his chest, and he wrapped his arms around her like it was the most natural thing in the world. It didn't feel like forgiveness. It felt like truth. Something rare. Something real. The next morning, the city glimmered under a pale blue sky. Glass skyscrapers reflected soft sunlight, and the world seemed cleaner somehow, like it had been gently rinsed overnight. But inside the towering headquarters of Coal Enterprises, things felt very different. Tense. Off balance. Quiet. Jason stepped off the executive elevator wearing his usual tailored suit, but the air around him had changed. His stride was slower, more deliberate. His mind wasn't on quarterly reports or expansion proposals. It was on Vivian. She was already in the office, seated at her desk just outside his door. As always, she was perfectly polished, navy blouse, silver necklace, subtle lipstick. She glanced up as he approached, giving him her usual polite smile. But Jason didn't smile back. Vivian, he said, pausing just beside her desk. Can we talk? Something in his tone made her fingers still over her keyboard. She looked up more carefully now. Of course, she said, standing. They stepped into his office. He closed the door behind them with a quiet click. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence pressed in like a third person in the room. Vivian stood with her hands clasped in front of her, waiting. Jason stood with his back to her, staring out the massive window at the city. I talked to Lena last night, he said finally. Vivian's spine stiffened, but she didn't respond. She told me everything, he continued. About the first $50. About the second. About what you said to her. Vivian's mouth parted slightly, like she might deny it, but no words came out. I want to believe you did it because you care about me, Jason said, turning to face her now. But that doesn't make it okay. I was trying to protect you, she said quietly, eyes starting to shimmer. You don't know these women, Jason. You don't know what they're after. He looked at her, tired now. Not angry. Just worn. And you think you do? I've seen it for years, she said, stepping forward. They come and go. Models, influencers, fake smiles. But you, Jason, you're you. You need someone who knows you. Someone who understands how hard you've worked for this. How alone you've felt. His expression hardened. Someone like you. She nodded. Yes. He exhaled slowly. Vivian. He said her name with a softness that nearly broke her. You're brilliant. You've been by my side for almost a decade. You know this company better than anyone. But this, what you did, it wasn't for me. It was for you. Her face faltered. That's not true. It is, he said gently. And that's why we need some space. She took a step back. What does that mean? I'm going to transfer you to the London office, he said. Still executive level. Still full salary. But I need a new assistant here. I need room to move forward. Vivian's face froze. For a long time, she didn't speak. Her eyes were glassy now, but she held back the tears with a kind of fierce dignity. So that's it, she whispered. Jason walked over to his desk, picked up a photo in a silver frame. It was of the two of them at a company retreat 5 years ago. They were both laughing. Back when things were easier. He set it down carefully. I'll always respect you, he said. But I don't want to resent you. And we're headed there. Vivian nodded once, swallowing hard. I understand. She turned and walked to the door. Just before she left, she paused, her hand on the handle. I loved you, you know, she said, her voice almost too soft to hear. He looked up. I know. Then she was gone. Hours later, the day winding down, Jason stood in front of the mirror in the men's lounge, adjusting his tie. He didn't have a meeting. He just needed to breathe. His reflection stared back at him. Tired, a little older than yesterday, but clearer somehow. His phone buzzed. Lena, you still in the Tower of Capitalism, or did you escape? He smiled despite himself. Jason, just slayed the final office dragon. Now heading to the tavern for ale. Lena, I'll bring my sword. And cookies. He chuckled, tucked his phone into his pocket, and stepped into the elevator. Meanwhile, in a sleek high-rise apartment uptown, Vivian stood at her window, staring down at the traffic below. Her suitcase lay open on the bed behind her, half-packed. She wasn't crying. Not anymore. She was remembering the way he had looked at her, not with hate, not even pity, but with finality. Maybe he had always loved someone else. Maybe he just never loved her. But either way, this chapter was over. She picked up her phone, opened a blank message, then deleted it. Some things didn't need to be said. She zipped up the suitcase, turned off the light, and walked out of the apartment into the unknown. The cafe was quiet, its windows fogged slightly from the warmth inside meeting the evening chill outside. The sky had just begun to shift to a dusty lavender, the golden hour casting long shadows on the sidewalk. Lena stood behind the counter of her very own cafe, sleeves rolled up, flour on her cheek, a smudge of cinnamon on her apron. The little brass plaque above the door gleamed in the light. The tipping point. It had been a dream she never admitted out loud. Not to anyone. Not even to herself, really. A place of her own. A cafe that felt like home to people who didn't even realize they needed one. The loan had been a leap. Jason had offered to fund the entire thing. No strings attached, but she'd only accepted part of it. The rest she scraped together through late shifts, an anonymous art sale, and more than a few sleepless nights. She wanted it to be hers, not just a gift from a man she was falling for. And he respected that. That's what made it work. The bell over the door jingled. She didn't look up. If that's you, Jamal, you're late and I'm emotionally prepared to fire you. But it wasn't Jamal. Jason leaned against the doorframe, wearing jeans and a dark button-up, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, sunglasses tucked into the collar. He looked like the kind of man who didn't belong in a small coffee shop on the corner of an arts district. But somehow, with her, he always did. Technically, I'm on time, he said. You just always start 15 minutes early. She smirked and finally looked up. Well, I like having a head start. He walked over, leaned on the counter, and reached out to wipe the bit of flour from her cheek with his thumb. Still making your famous cookies? He asked. You mean the ones that almost got me fired and somehow got me kissed instead? Jason grinned. Best professional sabotage of my life. She nodded toward the tray cooling behind her. Chocolate sea salt. Your favorite. You spoil me. I ruin your dates. I bake you cookies. I open cafes with your name underlined in the loan paperwork. It's called balance. Jason chuckled. Speaking of balance, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small black box. Lena blinked. What is that? You tell me, he said, opening it. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, a thin platinum band with a small, oval sapphire nestled between two tiny diamonds. Lena's breath caught. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. It was her. Entirely. She looked up at him, eyes wide. Jason. I know it's fast, he said quickly, his voice lower now, more serious. But when you really know, you just do. I don't want to wait another year to be sure of what I already feel every time I wake up, and you're not next to me. Lena covered her mouth, shaking her head in disbelief. You're proposing in my cafe? In an apron? I haven't even brushed my hair today. You're perfect, he said. Even with flour on your nose. She glanced around. There are customers out there. Someone's going to scream if they see a billionaire CEO go down on one knee next to the scone display. Let them scream. He took a breath and got down on one knee. Lena looked like she might laugh or cry or both. She wiped her hands on her apron, then knelt down with him on the floor, their knees side by side, grinning like fools. "I guess that's a yes," he asked. She kissed him. Right there, on the cold tile floor of her cafe, surrounded by half-prepared cookie trays, mop buckets, and the scent of fresh espresso. "Definitely yes," she whispered. 6 months later. The wedding was private. No press. Just close friends, a few family members, and one extremely nosy ex-coworker named Jamal who cried into his tie during the vows. Lena wore a simple white dress with a slit and combat boots underneath. Jason wore a charcoal gray suit and a look of peace that none of his board members had ever seen before. They didn't marry in a cathedral or some ritzy event space. They married on the rooftop of the same restaurant where it all began, where a waitress was paid $50 to ruin a date, where a CEO was rescued by chaos. As they danced under strings of fairy lights, Lena leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. "You know," she murmured, "you never paid Vivian back for that night." Jason chuckled. "No, but I tipped the waitress." She smiled against his neck. "You're lucky she didn't quit after that." "She's lucky I fell for her." Lena laughed, then looked up at him. "Do you think this is crazy?" Jason kissed her forehead. "I think the best things always start with a little madness." We have come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.